Bread, bread, crusty bread.
Baked bread.
In the oven, the baker said. Bread, bread, delicious bread. Brown, white, granary, or rye instead. Toasted, toasted, butter it with jam. Thin slice, thick slice, medium with ham.
Hello everybody, hello children, hello, I'm Sam, and today we're in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. Now we're here to learn all about quite a simple food, but it's a very important food too. It's something that many of us will eat nearly every single day. I'm talking about bread. Meet our guide for today's online field trip, but this is Paul. Paul is a bread making expert, aren't you, Paul? Paul works here at the factory. What is your job here, Paul?
My job is to head the product development team. So I make the recipes that make all the breads we see.
What an amazing job that is.
It's great fun.
So as I said, bread is a very important type of food, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, something like 6 million loaves a day are eaten in the United Kingdom. It's a huge amount. That's
all the toast, all the sandwiches we have. I mean, we do eat a lot of bread. That's amazing. That's right. And you're going to guide us through this online field trip. I think you're the perfect person to do that. And you're going to take us on a journey of a loaf like this, aren't you?
That's right. Starting with the wheat, right the way through to the finished bread that we see in front of us.
Fantastic. Can't wait for that. Let's find out who we have taking part on this online field trip with us. Let's go over and meet our schools. First of all, we've got Holy Trinity Rosehill School, where Mr. Waller's class is taking part again in Stockton-on-Tees. Hello, class.
Hello.
Hello, children. It's really, really great to have you all taking part with us today. Let's go to St Augustine's School now, where Miss Addie's class is taking part in Herefordshire. Hello, everybody. Hello, children. Fantastic. And let's go over to Takeley Primary School now, where Mrs. Griffiths' class is taking part in Essex. Hello, children.
Hello.
Nice and loud. And we also have Deepdale Junior School. Mrs. Phillips' class is taking part. They're in Preston. We do have your questions, children, from Deepdale, so we will make sure that we get Paul to answer those in just a second as well for you. So it's great to have you all taking part. I think the first thing we need to do, Paul, is find out what goes into a loaf of bread like this. Is it a tricky recipe when it comes to making bread?
No, all breads are very, very simple. They're composed of a relatively few ingredients. First thing you need to have is flour, and for that one we're using a wholemeal flour. Second thing you need to have is water, because without that you don't get any, it doesn't make a dough. Third thing, and the very important thing for making it rise, is the yeast, which is actually here. You can see this is what we call fresh yeast, which has actually been dried. It has been dried a little bit, but not very much. If you bake at home, you'll quite often find it's in little balls, and that's because it's been dried further. It needs a bit more time to get going. This is fresh because it's what we use in the factories. Two other final ingredients that we add are salt and what we call bread improver. So the salt, we add a little bit because that helps to make the dough stretchy, and it's very important for that. Not just, it isn't about taste, it's to make the dough stretchy. And the final thing is bread improver. This is this kind of gloopy thing that actually contains ascorbic acid, which is the same as vitamin C, and also a little bit of oil and fats and things like that again help to make that dough soft and nice the way we like it.
Wow, so it's just a few really key ingredients, and by the sounds of it, Paul, flour is really important. How do we make flour? Oh,
well, flour starts with an ingredient which is wheat. So that's what wheat looks like, which is a grain that you see growing in the fields all over the United Kingdom. And we take that and we grind it down, and the starting point for that is actually what we get from the farm is this sort of stuff. It's got bits of straw and chaff that he hasn't managed to remove from it. So the first job of the miller is to clean it up. And here's a sample that we've cleaned, so you can see the amount of stuff. You don't want to be eating bits of chaff, you want to be making the grain from here.
Yeah.
Within this wheat grain, there are three things that are important to think about. First thing is, there's the bran around the outside, which is the brown bit you can see here. Second thing is, inside that, there's kind of a white bit in the middle that we call the endosperm, and that's what actually makes the white bit of the flour. And the third thing is that right on the end of it, there's a little bit of what we call the wheat germ, and that's the bit that will grow to make the new plant. So those are the three things that are in the grain.
Fantastic. And so then they're ground down gradually.
Yeah. So when we in the milling process that you'll see you'll see shortly, first thing that happens is we take this nice clean wheat and we grind it on machines that crush the grain and into something that looks like this. We then have big machines called pan sifters that sift it into different sizes. So that's where we get this, which we call semolina, and yes, it is exactly the same as the semolina you would have at home. And finally, that gets ground down some more, and we end up with a flour at the end. So it's a gradual process, taking it from the wheat down to the flour.
That's amazing. So that's made from wheat, that's wheat flour. Can you make flour from other types of grain?
Yes, there are lots of different sorts of grains as well. This one is one that looks a lot like the wheat, but actually is a thing called spelt, which is an ancient grain that's been grown for thousands of years, longer than the wheat we use today. Another grain that you'll sometimes see is called rye, and this one will make rye breads and rye grains. And you can see it's almost greeny in colour and a slightly different shape.
I'm sure I've had rye bread before. It tastes quite nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can even make breads. We don't tend to eat them in the UK, from barley, which is this one here, and from oats. So both of those you can actually also make breads from, or at least you can use them as part of the bread process. So lots of different things.
I didn't know that. I think some of our children may have known that though, Paul, because I know that a lot of you have been learning about bread already in your classroom. So let's find out now what Holy Trinity Rosehill School have already learned before today's online field trip. So let's pop over to Mr. Waller's class again. Hello children, can you tell me what you've already learned about bread?
There are over 200 varieties of bread produced in the UK alone.
Wow, that's an amazing fact. Are they right? There's over 200 varieties of bread produced in the UK alone, Paul?
I would think that's, yes, at least 200, I would think.
Great, that's a great bit of a great fact that you've learned there. Do we have another fact from Trinity Rosehill?
There was a shortage of flour during World War I, so potato was used to make bread.
That's a really good fact. Is this right, Paul, that there was a shortage of flour in World War I, so they used potatoes to make bread?
That's absolutely right. And even in the World War II, all our flour had to be made to a special recipe that was very close to this one, because we were short of grain.
Wow, fantastic. Great learning, children. Can we get another fact from you?
Stale bread can be mixed with egg, sugar and other ingredients to be baked into bread and butter pudding.
Wow, that's a really, really good fact. So you can use stale bread and mix it up together to make bread and butter pudding.
It's a really good way of using up stale bread, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, bread and butter pudding. Oh, yum, my tummy's rumbling. Great fact there. Can we have one more fact from Holy Trinity Rosehill School?
The first baker's shop appeared in ancient Greece in 4000 BC.
This is a fantastic fact. So the first baker's shop appeared in Greece in 4000 BC, Paul.
Absolutely right. That's a really good fact. It is something. We've been making bread for more than 6,000 years.
Are you impressed with everything that Holy Trinity Rosehill School know already?
Done very well. They've done very well indeed.
They may be able to get a job here in the future.
I look forward to it.
Well done, children. Great learning. It's time now for our first video, because I don't know about you, I'd quite like to know how wheat goes from this to this. This is all about how flour is made.
How is flour made? We've been making flour for at least 6,000 years. Stone Age people took grain and crushed it between two stones. Although modern flour mills are very big and make thousands of tons of flour every day, the process really isn't that different. To make flour, you need grain. Most flour that we use for bread is made from wheat grain. We grow over 16 million tons of wheat in the UK. It's usually planted in the autumn, and it grows throughout winter, spring and summer, ready for harvest in August. The farmer harvests the wheat using a machine called a combine harvester. Then the grain is taken to the mill, ready to be ground into flour. Each grain of wheat is a seed, which would grow into a new wheat plant if it were put into the soil. The grain has three parts: the bran, which is the outside skin, the endosperm, which is the food store of the grain, and the wheat germ, which is the part of the grain that grows into a new plant if the grain germinates. A loaf of brown bread has all the parts of the grain in the flour. When the grain arrives at the mill, they take a sample to check the quality. If the grain passes the test, it's unloaded into the mill's storage area. The next job is to clean the grain that's just been delivered. They take out all of the straw, sticks and stones using these sieves. Then they blend different types of wheat together so they can make the right kind of flour. This is called gristing. The flour used in bread needs to have a lot of protein in it to make it soft but strong when it's baked. The milling happens in these machines, called plan sifters. The machines separate the different parts of the wheat using rollers and air bubbles, and this process creates the flour. The ground flour is then tested and checked for quality. Then it's transported to the bakery or to the shops, ready to bake your fresh loaf of bread.
So now you know how flour is made. We've now moved further inside the test bakery and we're going to see how they make the bread here. So Paul, what do we need to do first?
Well, the first thing we've done is we've weighed up the ingredients and we're now going to tip these in. Helen's going to tip these into the mixer for us. So that's all the ingredients that we talked about earlier that go to make the flour. And then the water that needs to go in with it as well.
And this is just a big giant mixing bowl.
This is a big mixing bowl that will do in about 3 minutes. That will take that from all those ingredients to be that complete finished dough.
Fantastic, that's amazing. Let's see what happens next then.
This is one we prepared a little bit earlier. And Helen's just going to scale that off into the right weight so we get the right sort of weight of bread that goes into the finished loaf. The next step is we round that up to make it into a into a round ball, and it then goes into the finished prover and rests for a minute or two. Before that then rotates through. It takes about 6 or 7 minutes, and that rests the dough right down and allows us to get a nice soft dough that when it comes out and into the next machine that you're seeing now, which we call the moulder, which flattens out the dough into a nice flat piece, rolls it up, and we get something that looks like this.
Wow.
Which is what goes into the tins.
It's like a big giant sausage.
It is like a big giant sausage. It's actually a bit like a Swiss roll inside. And then what we do is pop them into the tins. These are now ready to go in and be proved up.
So that's all you need, and then it will just rise right to the top.
The yeast that we talked about earlier allows that dough to rise, makes the little gas bubbles that grow and grow and grow.
Fantastic.
So if I then pop these in the prover, so this is a warm and humid place that it keeps the temperature at the right level for the yeast to work.
So it's a little bit like a sauna, Paul.
Absolutely, just like a sauna, and the dough will rise over about the next sort of 50 minutes.
Okay, fantastic.
So here's some that I prepared a little bit earlier. So you can see that's exactly the same recipe that we saw earlier, and these have now all proved up and are just ready to go into the bakery. You can see they're quite soft and sort of I can just touch them, and you can see, but they're actually they sort of wobble a bit like a jelly. So obviously I can't slice that, and you can't make a sandwich out of that. So the next thing we've got to do is put them in the oven and bake them.
Wow, fantastic. So it's not cooked at all. It's just been warmed slightly to let the yeast do its thing. Yeah,
that's it. It's just the yeast growing and releasing gas that's made this dough rise. So that now goes into the oven, and that'll move through in the oven very, very slowly. Takes about 20 minutes throughout the oven, and at the end of that time, we've then got nice bread.
Fantastic. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens the other end then? Is that where it comes out? It's like a conveyor belt that goes all the way through here.
The conveyor belt runs all the way through. Takes about 22 minutes in total, and actually we need to, and it's about 200 degrees C. So the bread...
Very hot indeed.
So the bread here is very hot, and that's why I need to wear the gloves. So here you can see those finished loaves. So these are, again, some that we made a little bit earlier, but you can see how they've browned up, and they're now solid. So all we've got to do now...
You can just smell the bread as well. It smells amazing.
Is knock out those loaves, and there we go.
Oh.
4 nice wholemeal loaves.
So it's just enough time to find some butter while they're cooling down, and we can have a nice slice of bread and butter.
That's right.
Lovely, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for showing us that process, Paul. I think after watching that, some of our children may have some questions for you. So let's head over to Holy Trinity Rosehill School now. Have you got any questions for us, Mr. Waller?
How many varieties of bread are there in the whole world?
That's a great question. How many varieties of bread are there in the whole world, Paul?
Well, I think somebody earlier said there is a bit more than 200 in the UK. There are thousands of different sorts of bread in the world. For all sorts of different, every culture has their own sort of type of bread that they eat, and they're all different.
Oh, great. I guess you can do your own as well. If you're making bread at home, you can play around with the ingredients and have your own unique bread.
Absolutely, yeah, everybody can have their own unique one.
Fantastic. Let's get another question from Mr. Waller's class.
What is in tiger bread that makes the outside pattern so interesting?
That's a really good question. So, tiger bread, how come it looks so interesting? What's in it to make it look so good?
It's actually something they put on the top of it. So on the top of it, it has a different sort. It actually has a sort of rice flour that's put on the top. When that bakes, it cracks and makes that nice tiger shape.
But doesn't raw when you
slice
it, it doesn't raw.
No.
Great questions from Trinity Rosehill. Let's go over to St Augustine's School now. Do we have any questions, Miss Addie's class? I'm afraid we don't have any audio from you at the moment. We do have your questions here, so let's see if Paul can answer your questions. So Paul, do you get messy when you make bread?
Oh, it's a telling question. If you do it right, no. If you're doing it wrong, you'll get messy. If you get the flour and water all over you, you'll get messy. If you keep it in the mixing bowl, then you'll be all right.
I always get messy when I try cooking. Fantastic question. Let's get another one from St Augustine's School. I've got, does bread contain sugar, and is it good for you, Paul?
Well, bread is very good for you. It contains lots of good things. Does it contain sugar? The vast majority of breads in the United Kingdom don't have any added sugar at all. They sometimes have a little bit of sugar in them, but that actually, again, we talked about the yeast, it makes that bread grow. It does that by sort of breaking down the flour that we talked and releasing some sugar. So there's a little bit of sugar in there, but there's not any added. Oh,
fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Paul. Great questions, children, as well. It's time for another video now. This is going to show us in more detail the process that we've just seen. This is all about how bread is made.
How is bread made? Bread is a very important food. Millions of people around the world eat it every day. And amazingly, the basic recipe for bread has been the same for thousands of years. You just mix flour and water to make dough and then bake. To make a loaf of bread like this one, it's a bit more complicated. Soft breads like this have an added ingredient: yeast. This works inside the dough to make it rise, and so when it's baked, it's much softer. In this factory, they make thousands of loaves like this every single hour. The first job is to weigh out all the ingredients: flour, yeast, salt, water, and very small quantities of some other ingredients, like fat and vitamin C. Next, this machine mixes all of the ingredients together to become stretchy and gooey dough. Then, they divide up the dough into loaf-sized amounts. Shape it and put it into tins. Now it's time to let the yeast do its work and make the dough rise. They put the dough in a warm, damp place. This is called proving. Did you know that yeast is a kind of fungus like a mushroom? But yeast fungi are microscopic. That means they are so small you need a microscope to see them. Once the loaves have risen, they are baked in these big ovens. They have to get the temperature just right. These ovens bake the bread at 230 degrees Celsius for 22 minutes. They blow the air around the tins to evenly bake the loaf. When they are ready, the loaves are removed from their tins and left to cool for 2 hours.
Bread, bread, crusty bread, bake it in the oven, the baker said. Bread, bread.
Now they are ready for slicing. This machine does the slicing job. And then the bread is put into bags. Finally, the freshly baked loaves are packed up in these lorries and taken to shops all around the country, ready for you to eat and enjoy.
So that is how bread is made, and the reason why a loaf of bread like this is soft in the middle is because it has yeast added, and yeast is added to the bread to make the bread rise. That's right, isn't it, Paul? I'm learning.
Yeah, you certainly are. That's absolutely the case. That's why we saw it go from those little small dough pieces, rise up to the big ones, and then why we get that nice big shape that we've got there.
What happens if bread doesn't have yeast in?
Well, if bread doesn't have yeast, it doesn't rise. So what you end up with is flatbreads. So I think things like flour tortillas, which we've got over here, are the sort of thing that would be made without yeast.
Oh, fantastic. Learning so much, we are. I'm sure we've got some more questions. So we've got some questions from Deepdale Primary School here. We have lost them on the connection, but I do have your questions here, children, so don't you worry, I will ask Paul for you. So Paul, what's the best climate to make bread?
You can make bread in all climates. As we saw, there's actually generally quite it's nice to have a sort of warm day to do it on. So if you're making bread at home, it's quite often nice to have it on a warm day or with the doors closed and the central heating on. So, you know, a nice temperate climate. Very hot, and that yeast works too fast. Very cold, and it works very slowly.
So it's a balancing act, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Complete balancing act. And how long does the process take from start to finish?
From start to finish, it'll take about 4 hours to cooling the bread down, ready to be able to be sliced.
Fantastic. Great questions from Deepdale there. It's time for Tately School now to ask some questions. So let's go over there to Mrs. Griffiths' class. What would you like to ask Paul?
Why don't we eat much rye bread in this country?
That's a really good question. Why don't we eat much rye bread in this country, Paul?
I don't know. There's not really a history of people eating rye bread. In the UK, people have generally eaten wheat breads, so that's what we do. If you lived in Germany, you'd eat lots of rye bread because they're used to that's kind of there's a history of it. So I don't really know.
So it's just generally what people have done before us.
And what people choose to do and the flavours we're used to.
Oh, okay. That's a really great fact. Okay, let's get one more question from Tately Primary School.
I don't like the crust on bread. Why can't there be a bread without crust?
I heard something about crust. I don't think he likes the crust, and why can't there be bread without the crust, Paul?
There are some breads without crust. What I would say is, though, the crust is as good for you as anything, and actually that's the bit where a lot of the flavour is. So that's actually quite a good one to eat. So I would say eat your crusts, they are good for you.
Okay. Do they make your hair curly? We need to know that one, don't we? Because that's what my mum used to say to me. Eat your crust and it'll make you your hair curly.
No.
Oh, okay. That's why I've got straight hair then, isn't it? Really, I ate all my crust thinking I'd have a nice wave. Yeah. Great questions, everybody. Now, Paul, earlier on in the online field trip, you told us that different types of grain make different types of flour. So I'm guessing different types of flour make different types of bread. Is that right?
That's absolutely the case. So and actually, even within that same flours, you can make lots of different types of bread with very similar flours as well.
So we have loads of types of bread, as I can see here in front of us. And children, you should have lots of types of bread in your school as well. So this is a great opportunity to pass them round, take a look at the different types and have a taste. Don't eat it all. Make sure everybody in the class gets some. So Paul, could you talk us through some of the different types we have here?
So the sort of breads we've got here. So the first one I'll start with here is a seeded wholemeal loaf. So this one is wholemeal like the one we've been seeing, but it's also got added seeds in it to make them sort of crunchy and add a bit more flavour. So that's quite a popular loaf these days. If we then move on, we talked about flatbreads earlier, ones that don't have yeast. This is a flour tortilla. So it's made from wheat flour. It can also be made from corn. no yeast in it at all, and that's the sort of thing that you put your filling in, fold it over to make yourself a sandwich.
It's nice to see you put the end up there, because I always forget to do that and it all falls out the bottom.
It is always the way. And those originally come from places like South America, so Mexico and places like that is where that bread originated.
Great.
Next one we've got here is some naan breads. Again, this has got no yeast in it as well. This has actually got self-raising flour, so your mum at home will probably have self-raising flour, and these are made with that. So they bubble up a little bit, but nowhere near as much as we've got with the yeast. And these come from India and Pakistan and that sort of part of the world.
Yeah, I've definitely eaten those before with a curry.
Yeah. The other thing, which is a very British thing again, is a roll. So this is exactly the same sort of recipe as we've used on the wholemeal that we've seen today, but we've just shaped it up into a different shape, so you get more, for the person who didn't like crust, you get more soft bits in the middle and a bit less crusty on the side. And you cut those open, you can make your sandwich with those yourself. One thing that is actually really nice, and is a bread that does contain some sugars, because somebody asked earlier, because it comes in the fruit. So this is a kind of a fruit loaf. So you can see all the bits of raisins and currants that are in there, and the citrus peel as well, to make a really nice tasty loaf. That's really nice for toasting and having of an afternoon.
Oh, I could do with some butter on that now. That would just go down a treat right now. And a bread like this is a source of iron, which is very good for your brain, very good for your blood. It's also a starchy food as well, which will give you some energy. So it's hardly surprising, Paul, that we have a piece of toast in the morning to pick us up, and also a sandwich at lunchtime as well. This gives us some energy there. Okay, we have been learning a lot about bread so far on today's online field trip. I think it's about time we find out what our schools have learned. So let's head over to Holy Trinity Rosehill School and find out what Mr. Waller's class has learned.
We have learnt that brown bread uses all the parts of grain.
That's a really good fact. So they've learned the brown bread uses all of the parts of the grain.
Yep, that's a very good, absolutely
Great.
right.
Really good fact there. Let's go over to Takeley Primary School and find out what you've learned.
Flour is ground up wheat.
That's a really, really good fact they've learned. So flour is ground up wheat.
Absolutely, that's absolutely correct. Got that right.
Are you impressed with what our children have learned?
Doing very well. Yeah, no, they really have picked it up.
I think we've got some little bread makers out there, haven't we, really?
Yeah.
And don't forget, children, you have everything in your classrooms you need to make bread now. So if you fancy giving it a go, then maybe you want to try like a little bit of a recipe, a different recipe, by putting something inside the bread and have a unique recipe. If you do that, then don't forget to come back to the Eat Happy website, show us your pictures, and if you did try a different recipe that worked, share your recipe so we can all have a go. It'd be great to see that as well. If our children are going to have a little go at making bread, Paul, what would you say? What would your advice be?
My big advice on it is, we saw that mixer that mixes it in 3 minutes. You're going to need to spend 15 minutes working hard to prove it and to mix that dough right and to get it stretchy. So a little bit of elbow grease is my advice.
Okay, yeah, you can't be lazy when you're making bread, can you? You need to, I suppose you need plenty of time. Do you need to watch the bread the whole process, just to make sure it doesn't go wrong?
Yeah, it's best to do it here. We control all the temperatures very, very tightly, whereas for the at home you won't have the same level of control. So you need to keep an eye on it and look for the bread to be the right height before you put it in the oven.
Fantastic. Well, definitely give it a go. That'd be great. What is the best thing about your job, Paul?
It's a joy. I just love my job because I get to make up the new recipes and develop new products all the time. So we spend our days here making lots of different recipes, tasting lots of different breads. It's perfect for me because I love bread.
It sounds like a dream come true. I'm sure lots of our children would love to give that a go as well. Well, we've come to the end of this online field trip, children. We really hope you've enjoyed learning with Paul all about the different types of bread and the crazy fact that we eat so much bread. Is it 6 million?
6 million loaves a day.
6 million a day in the UK. That is pretty crazy, but thank you so much for taking part. Don't forget, if you'd like to take part in a farm to fork field trip, you can do that. Everything you need is on the website and you can be having lots of fun, just like the children you can see on the screen right now, visiting a farm or a producer. It really is lots of fun. But from us today on this bread online field trip, it's a goodbye from High Wycombe, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
Goodbye, children. Thank you for learning with us today. Goodbye, Holy Trinity Rosehill.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, St Augustine School. Thank you so much for taking part. Thank you so much to Deepdale Junior School as well. And Takeley Primary School. Thank you so much for taking part, children. See you soon.